Welcome to the Hayes CISD Blended Learning video series. In every blended learning training, we always go back to our why. What are the problems we are trying to solve? What goals do we have to improve our practice? We know that a shift to student-centered blended learning can help us address district-wide core problems that impact learning. Let's explore how teachers across the district are using blended learning and specific strategies to better meet the needs of today's students. In this video, you will hear directly from a teacher who uses a blended model. Her interview unpacks some of the blended strategies she uses, classroom management routines that support independent learning, and the role executive functioning skills play in student agency. You will see examples of how each of the pillars of blended learning are realized in her classroom, and lessons she has learned in the development of her blended workflow.
So I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to come into your classroom and watch your amazing stations and kind of give me the background of your blended learning journey.
It's definitely taken multiple years. We started off just little baby steps. We started off just by introducing like Dreambox and stations. And it has kind of just grown into what it is, where they have the playlist and then they choose the activities that they're working on. A lot of it ends up being on Schoology. And every single year it gets better and it gets easier and it gets less time consuming because you figure out little tricks.
That you start the year off with those same expectations and new school year things to be able to implement the blended learning.
Yes.
And so at the beginning of your school year, did y'all set classroom expectations and do all
yes.
And then you went into the blended learning, or was it kind of simultaneously?
It was actually kind of simultaneously. You know, that first week is always about the mission statement, the rules. I usually try to have them come up with their own rules.
So are there blended learning and like technology expectations within your classroom expectations as well? Like, are they separate from one another?
No, it's built in.
Okay.
I don't want to make it too complicated. It goes along with like flexible seating too. One of the rules is just treating others and things with respect. And that includes like your time. Time management is a big deal with blended learning. If they don't use their time wisely, if they're not respectful of their time and other people's times, we'll have those conversations. Yes. Okay, cool. You're done with all your work. What about your friend that you're talking to? Right.
Yeah.
You know, what about their time? You know,
one of the things that I think I saw, like you had built the relationships and made the connections first, right? Is that a piece of it that you've tried to do before kind of just saying, oh, here you go. Here's your blended.
Yes. Yes. Well, and so that's where like when you're starting off the year and you're starting off slow, and everybody has their playlist and everybody's going to do the same activity together. You're having fun with it. You're showing how to be responsible. You know, the first month or two, you know, it's just all about like doing it. But yes, building those relationships. I also try to keep up with those relationships. I think that part is it's really, really important. We do like a morsel time. So they sign up and then, you know, whatever day they sign up for, they get to spend their morning just chatting with me. They get to miss their morning work and then we just talk about whatever they want to talk about.
So when I was in the classroom, a couple of things that I really noticed that were really awesome. The kids had their leader and me binders so they can look specifically on what things they need to be working on. They are very aware of how to pull up their timer for their fluency passage. They can do that. They have offline activities and they also have online activities. So one of the things that really was amazing about it is no matter what they were doing, everyone was on task. Like everyone was doing what they're supposed to. Talk to me a little bit about that evolution of finding ways to make sure that kids are holding themselves accountable. I saw one student who saw another student kind of walking around and he was like, dude, you're not supposed to be walking around. Like you have things you need to be doing. So talk to me about how kids hold each other accountable, what expectations you have, like how do you handle all of that?
We start off the year just by First, we'll do the playlist all together. We will check off one box at a time. I do flexible seating. I think that really pulls into getting the kids to be in charge of their learning. We talk all the time about, it's not my job to like make you learn. That's your job. I'm here to teach you and I'm here to guide you. But ultimately you're in charge of it. And I think the Leader in Me program, it just fits in so well with that, but you don't even have to have that program to like do it. It's just all about putting that responsibility on them. And if you don't want to learn, you're not going to learn, you know, like I can try to force you to do it. So we do a lot of talking about that. And then like when they're choosing their spots for flexible seating, of course, at the beginning, they all want to like, you know, be next to their friends, but then we'll start having those conversations like, oh, wow, you didn't finish all your work this week, right? Do you think that was the best spot for you to sit? What can you do next week to change that? And I think it just all integrates. And I have definitely the normal routines, like on my checklist, if they don't have all their checks on Friday, you don't go to Fun Friday. Another thing that I've started doing too is Thursdays, like really like getting to the checklist and seeing
where kids are at.
Yes. I mean, like right now we're in January, so they all want to like get done, they all like know the expectations, but I think just like being consistent, like, nope, sorry, you can't go to Fun Friday. Fun Friday is purely optional. You don't have to have that, but you do need to be like mastering these skills.
Talk a little bit about the engagement of your classroom, pre-blended versus post-blended. How do you see a change in engagement and motivation in your kids?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. Like, especially from like when I first started teaching, it was all about me running the show, me barking, trying to get them to do what I wanted them to do. Right. It creates like this really amazing environment because it's not just like blended learning. It's about putting them in charge of their learning. And it releases that control. They enjoy it more. They want to do it. They want to learn. It's not about you making them learn. They want to do it. And obviously it's not everybody,
right.
Like this is not perfect, but it is definitely the majority. And we still do, I still have to do things like I have to be your leader for right now because you weren't in charge of yourself. So I'll pull them over to my desk or just get them close to me. I still do all like the normal stuff like that.
And so let's talk a little bit about your ELAR playlist, because that's the one that I was fortunate enough to see. And there's a lot of different activities on there, but I noticed that kids were all working on different things. How do you ensure that the kids are completing the activities that you want them to be able to complete during the week in terms of graded assignments and things like that? Like, how did they go through that playlist?
The boxes that we want to grade are the boxes that are important. Well, I guess they're all important, but some of them are just extra practice. We have a little symbol on there that says teacher. And so those are the ones that they have to come up and show me. I usually do like the last 5 minutes of we call it leader of learning time, that they can come show me any work. And then I have a checklist and I go through really quick and I'll just check out their name. And then if it needs a grade, I try to do like a lot of my graded stuff in Schoology. That way it just automatically grades it for me. And I can just really run through and just write down the grades on that checklist. And then that checklist also ends up serving as my grade book. So it actually kind of like takes care of a whole bunch of steps in one.
I'm working on cursive.
On your playlist right here, I noticed that you have a video to go with your cursive. So you can watch the video if you want to, or you should watch the video while you're doing it.
Well, I guess you could do kind of both.
I noticed that some of them say teacher.
Yeah, that means we have to go show her.
Is cursive a teacher one?
Yes.
Okay. And so once you're done with your handwriting, you go show Miss Morris what you've completed.
Yeah, at the end of playlist time, she says, everybody show me what you worked on. And so that's when I show her my cursive.
Why do you think Miss Morris has you do that?
Because she wants to know like what we were doing, and so she can check it off.
Make sure if you guys are on task?
Yeah.
Say, for instance, you didn't do anything during your playlist time. What ends up happening?
Then you'll have to turn it in another time, and if you don't finish your playlist at the end of the week, you have to do it all on Friday.
Okay, and then what do you get to do if you finish it by Friday?
You get to do Fun Friday.
So what is Fun Friday?
Like, there's a bunch of games and like blocks, and you just get to play with them.
Oh, awesome. Okay. And do you like independent work sometimes, doing things on your own?
Yeah.
And why do you like maybe doing things on your own?
Just because, like, sometimes I don't really work well with partners, and sometimes I work really good with partners.
Okay, so you kind of get a mix up of different things. Is there any activities on your playlist that are your partner activities?
Yes, this one where the 1,000-word challenge.
Who are you supposed to ask for help if you need it?
So ask 3 before me. So you ask 3 people, and normally they'll answer your questions. And if they don't, then you just have to wait to the end of playlist time just to ask her, because normally she's in groups.
Okay, so if you have to wait to the end of playlist time, can you move on to another activity and just work on that instead?
Yes.
Check anything that you need me to check. Curious. Oh, good job. All right, so what do we have? L. Good job, Davey. Hold on. We got cursive. So, Davey. B and L. Make sure that you have your books open for me. So it can be quick. You gotta finish L. Can't check it off until you have L done.
L? I thought it was I.
Oh, did you do I?
Yeah.
You did 2 letters?
No.
You did the I too. Okay. I will count that, and then when we do the I, you do the L, okay? All right. What is this for?
This was our commas.
Commas? All right, good, Brooklyn. Go stamp it.
I think that you do a really great job of differentiating for your kids, and I can tell that you've put a lot of preparation into your stations. And so
on the playlist is actually beautiful for that, because on Monday morning when we start Leader of Learning time, I'll call them up, and then we go through and we X off the boxes that they don't have to do. So they get a shortened playlist. And then in the playlist, there's also differentiated activities. One of the boxes might say like fluency practice. And in fluency practice, they might be practicing nonsense words or sentences or passages. And when I bring them up into small group, I tell them what they're going to be doing. So that fluency practice kind of is automatically differentiated. And they have to practice like what I tell them to. But then if they want to go practice fluency, like on passages or extra stuff, like maybe they want to do some extra nonsense word practice, they have the option to do that.
okay, awesome. And then let's talk a little bit about your gifted kids, because I saw a couple of students who are working on some extensions and things like that. And so I know you've spent some time making sure that you have activities there for your kids who are early finishers or kids that are on that spectrum of gifted. So talk to me a little bit about how theirs is different than maybe your below level or on level kids.
Again, like we might go onto one of their boxes and I might tell them, you know what, you don't really need to practice that. We will write into the box, because it's a blank box with just a number in it. And we might write in their passion project or, multiple intelligence project. And all of that stuff is already linked onto Schoology. It's just slideshows that they get to go through, and it's got choice boards for projects and stuff for them to work on. And then for my DT kids, it's not optional. Like they have to do it. But so that way it also actually gives the other kids that chance to do it. Like, let's say if they see the other kids doing it and they want to work on those type of projects, then they might be more motivated to finish their playlist, and then they can go jump onto Schoology and look at those projects and choose the one to do as well. So it doesn't actually limit it to just gifted students. Do you know the bandaid lesson?
I don't think that I do.
It's for differentiation.
Okay,
this is a good one.
okay.
And I've been doing this for a really, really long time. And most people might already know it, but at the beginning of the year, we'll all sit down on the carpet, or, however we can sit on the carpet. And I will have them, I'll just tell a story about how they're playing on the playground and they're having so much fun, and ouch, they get a boo-boo, right? And I'll have them take their hand and they have to cover up wherever their boo-boo is, right? On their knee, on their head, on their arm, wherever it is. And then I'll have them all come up and I put a bandaid all on the same spot, right? And they'll be like, but my boo-boo's here, or my boo-boo's here. And I'm like, oh, well, let me help you with that. And I'll put a bandaid on their hand. Oh, you got a boo-boo on your knee. Oh, I can fix that. I'm your teacher. And then I'll put a bandaid on their hand, right? And so we'll go through the whole class and they're like, what are you doing? Right? Some of them might have a boo-boo on their hand for real, right? And so then we'll get to the end and they'll be like, oh, so did I help everybody? No. Did I help some of you? Yes. Okay. So my job as a teacher is to give you what you need, and you all need different things, right? So you might see somebody doing something else different, and you might want to do that, but that's what they need and you don't need that, right? So it's kind of like that whole
conversation about what you need. That's awesome.
And it
Very
works
cool.
out really, really well, because then for the rest of the year, you're like, okay, is that what you need? No. Or this is funny. Or, oh, do you need to practice walking in line? Right. Things like that. Right. Is that something that you need? Because I can totally help you with that,
That's funny. Well, and I also think that like kids will be like, why is she doing that when I'm doing this? Or why am I at your table when they're doing that? And that conversation of like, we're gearing our lessons and our learning toward what you need as an individual student.
Yes.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the structure of your classroom during your reading block. So you have your HMH content that you have to cover, and then you have specific TEKs, and then you also want to pull small groups. So kind of talk about your block of instruction and how you break it up, and then how much time you spend with your kids in the small group.
So this is something that I feel like I'm constantly playing with right now. So currently we're starting with like a reading lesson, whole group. And then whatever activity I might want them to do in the reading lesson, let's say we're doing character, we're setting character this week, and then I have an activity that I want them to finish on character. I'll put that on their playlist. It'll give them extra time to work on it then. And it's it's written down for them. So they have like their to-do list. And then I actually shortened my leader of learning time a little bit, because there's so many things to fit in. During phonics, I'm going to be doing less whole group time and more small group time. So on Monday morning, they're going to come in and they take a pre-test that's on Schoology. And if they make a 90 or above, say they've mastered, I know that they've mastered that phonics role. Mm-hmm. And so Monday will be a whole group lesson on phonics. So I'll still be doing like the open court stuff. All the kids who haven't mastered that role, and I'm using a 90 just to make sure that they've mastered it, they will meet with me on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday during that phonics time in a small group. Everybody else who has mastered it, then they do, we call it a phonics fun activity, which is linked on the playlist. They get to go choose it's just like those fun activities that you can do with like the words. And then I get to pull those other kids into the small group, and we do the blending and the dictation, the decodable reader and the skills book. And then on Friday, those kids retake that pre-test, and then that's their grade for the week. And the other kids have the option to retake it if they want.
You'll go first. Okay. Little Wilma. Wilma was born in June, on June 23rd, 1940. 1940.
So reading is more comprehension, right? It's all of your comprehension strategies. And it's more of a read aloud and then kind of like an activity. And then usually like on Thursdays, a reading response activity. So that way I can see if they've understood it. Okay. And then that skill also gets pulled into small group, where we'll do some kind of like writing with it usually, right? Not always. And then during the leader of learning time, which is when we do the playlist, I've had to take the first 15 minutes on, Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and they're doing Amplify. They have timers that are already on Schoology, so they know how to like get on there, start the timer, and go do Amplify. And then on Wednesdays, we are doing drop everything and read to actually get the physical books and everything. So I got this great idea from another teacher. So what she does with her guided reading books, on Monday, she'll take like 15 minutes and she'll give all the groups their reading books. And then they all get to like preview it, make predictions, and do all those things together. We do it like whole group, but they have their own specific book.
So you're asking the same general question to all kids, but they have different levels of books. That's really awesome.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes. And so that also saves time. Yeah. That was like one of those ideas where you're like, whoa,
yeah,
why have I been doing that this whole time? I've done it now for a couple of weeks. And it works beautifully because it takes it takes those few minutes where you would have to do it in a group and you just do it all together. Right.
Right.
I feel like it's all about finding those little extra minutes, just like that.
Regardless of what you're doing, whether it's blended or it's whole group, whatever, they have to learn it. So in terms of you checking to make sure that they mastered the content, how's a way that you use your data to be able to do that?
That's what I was earlier when I was saying like the checklist and the Schoology grades. Last year we used the My Book and the reading quizzes that go along with it. We're going to start using that this semester, but I'll use a lot of like their reading responses. We do a daily oral language for grammar, like all week long. We work on it's like the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice. And then Friday is the assessment on Schoology. And we do the same thing in math. Anyways, the checklist has honestly really like saved me a lot of time with that, because I'll jump on Schoology and write down their grades. And if I can get that done by like Thursday, Friday, I can really use it for a reteach. So for all those kids who, let's say didn't pass their daily oral language, I can pull them in for a small group and we can go over it and review it. And then that's their reteach.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit, because I think there's been this conversation about what is the most efficient way to use Schoology in terms of blending your class. And so when you first started using Schoology with blended, how are you doing that? And then why did you change to just the link and the playlist itself?
So we started by having Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday folders. And then last year that became a lot of work. Then what we started doing is we make slides. And one slide is our ELAR playlist. If you link that into Schoology and always use that same presentation, the only thing you ever have to add to Schoology is like any extra activities. You never actually have to change anything else. So now what I have is I have an ELAR folder, a math folder, and a science folder, so that when they open it up, it has the playlist right there. And then sometimes I'll add extra little activities that are always underneath it.
What do you do in terms of issues that we all have with the technology itself? I mean, even over the last couple of weeks, we've had issues with Amplify not working and things like that. And so if you are meeting with a group and a student is having difficulty, what kinds of things do you have in place in your classroom to deal with some of that stuff, so that they're not constantly coming up to your desk and being like, my computer's not working?
They do. And they do still, we still have that happen. But I really try to implement the ask three before me, be a problem solver, try to figure it out, ask your friends. And then if that doesn't work and I'm in the middle of a group, you just skip that activity. Just move on.
If you had advice for teachers who were going to start blended and things like that, and they were like, I don't know if I can do this, what would you do to kind of give them a little bit of advice?
My piece of advice would be several things. Go slow, give yourself grace, be flexible, change it. If it's not working, right, try something different, and talk to other teachers. We get the best ideas from other teachers.
I really appreciate you letting me come into your classroom. It's really awesome. It doesn't happen overnight, that like it takes refinement, and that even though you're this far in, you're still refining your practices to be able to best meet the needs of your kids. So I appreciate you meeting with me. Thank you so much. All right. Have a great day. All right. Bye.